Dear Deborah, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to be a virtual speaker in our conference. This is the second international conference on heuristics, focusing on motivating, orienting, and modeling invention. So please introduce yourself.
I'm Deborah Stipek. I'm a professor at Stanford University Graduate School of Education, and I study early math learning and child development and motivation.
Great. So we agreed on a few questions. The first is, why is it important to do research on early childhood mathematics education?
Yeah, at least in the US, math has not been a focus of early childhood education at all for many years until fairly recently. Most of the attention was given to the early literacy development.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, in the last 10 years, there have been a number of longitudinal studies that have shown that children's math skills when they enter school at around the age of 5 or 6 are very highly predictive of their success in school throughout school, and even predicts to some degree whether they finish high school and whether they enter college. So those early math skills turn out to be very, very predictive. It turns out that where you begin school, your skills in math relative to other children is, for most children, pretty much where they end up in school. There also is a very large achievement gap based on family income that is present when children enter school. Mm-hmm. So if you want to reduce the achievement gap that's based on family income, then you have to start very early. You can't wait until children are 7 or 8 or 15.
I see.
Those are the main reasons. The other thing is we've learned that young children can learn a lot of math and that they enjoy learning math and have fun doing it. So it's not like we're torturing them to develop those early skills.
All right. The second question is, what do we know about how children learn math, and what research still needs to be done?
One thing we know for young children, more than for older children, is that learning needs to be very active, and children learn best when they have some kind of manipulatives, things that they can actually move around while they're engaged in math problem solving. I've seen many classrooms where children are engaged in rote counting, and the teacher is very proud that her children can count from 1 to 100. Mm-hmm. But then when you sit down with the child, you realize that they have no idea what a 7 is. So if they have 3 buttons and you say, how many buttons do you have? They don't know what you mean. The counting is just like learning the order of these sounds. So what's really important, although children do need to learn the order of numbers, is to be counting objects so that they develop a number sense. And you can count buttons, you can count basically anything, silverware, so that children really have opportunities to manipulate objects, which helps them really develop a deep number sense. Another thing that's really important is that there's a lot of language, math language, that young children need to learn. So engaging them in conversation about math. Let's say, for example, spatial relations, over, under, beside, on top of, next to the right of, left of. All of this is language. So math is partly a language. And so engaging children in language is really important. Also, focusing on their understanding of things, which again involves language. Rather than just, okay, he got the right answer, he counted the 13 objects that I put in front of him and he understood that there were 13. To ask him to explain, how did you figure that out? Mm-hmm. So that they begin to use math language. And it's important that they can articulate their strategies, not just come up with the right answer. This turns out to be very helpful as they get older and have to do more complex math.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you can do with a child is to say, is there another way to figure that out? And if you have a couple of children, many times they'll come up with very different strategies for a problem that seems to an adult to be a fairly simple problem, like you have 22 buttons, I'm going to give you 2 more. How many will you have with the 2 more? So one child may count all 22 all over again, even though they just counted them, and then go 23, 24. Another child will remember that he had 22 and then just say 2 more, that makes 23, 24. And so having kids both come up with different solution strategies and also see other children come up with different solution strategies. So they see math not as something that you learn one right way to do it, and you simply apply that knowledge of that strategy, but that math is something that lends itself to problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to talk a little bit about what math instruction should look like for young children?
Of course, that would be very interesting.
All right. One thing is in many U.S. schools, and I Hungary preschool, so I can't compare with occurs there. But in U.S. schools, some teachers have a very kind of open-ended, children learn math by playing with blocks and by interacting with the real world. And that's true to some degree, but they won't learn everything we really want them to learn. Mm-hmm. And they will learn a lot more if there is some prepared, planned instruction with a goal in mind. So one thing is for the teachers to actually have some mathematical understanding with goals in mind when they engage children in mathematical activities. I want them to learn the cardinal principle. I want them to be able to count by twos or group objects by different categories. So maybe by color, and then by number, and then by shape. But they have that in mind before they begin the activity, and they plan the activity. But it's an open-ended activity that children have some discretion to figure out what they want to do. It's not, here's how you solve this problem. Yeah. But here's a problem, here's what I hope you understand. You may not articulate that to the children. And then let the children figure out strategies for being able to solve the problem. Providing a fair amount of autonomy for children, and I'll come back to that when we talk about motivation. To be sure that the teacher is assessing the children's understanding while the children are engaged in the activity. The teacher may think that they have a particular goal in mind, a particular mathematical understanding that they want children to achieve in the course of the activity, but it may or may not work. Yeah. So a lot of things we try, we think it's going to work, but it doesn't really. And teachers need to monitor that. And the only way they can really monitor whether it worked is to figure out whether it achieved the level of understanding that they hoped it would achieve. And then to adjust the next activity or the next interaction or the kinds of questions the teacher asks as a function of what she learned or he learned about what the children are actually understanding. So it's this kind of circular, ongoing planning activities, engaging children in them, observing how they actually work in the activity, assessing their understanding, and then what she understood about what they understand.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Okay, now there's one last thing, and this is probably the most important of all.
Yeah.
And the most difficult for teachers or parents or whoever's working with children engage in math activities. And that is, children learn best when they're working on something that they are able to figure out with a little bit of effort. If it requires no effort and it's easy, then they're not learning anything. They're just showing you what they already know how to do. Mm-hmm. If it's too difficult, too difficult for them, so that even with persistence and effort, they can't get it, then they're not going to learn anything either.
Mm-hmm.
So that means a teacher has to be able to be assessing all the children in the class and identifying where that point is for each child where they begin to struggle a bit, because that's that window in which the activity needs to focus. Well, if you have 20 children in your class, and in many classes lots more, that's a really difficult task, because you have to really think about, how do I engage children at very different levels of understanding in activities that really are going to help them get to that next level.
Yeah.
So it's challenging, but there is probably no more important principle of effective instruction than that, finding that point that children are really going to learn with a little bit of effort. And it's okay for children to struggle a bit. When teachers say to me, oh, I don't want children to struggle because it'll make them feel bad. It's like, no, it doesn't make them feel bad. It makes them feel, it gives them a sense of pride, of accomplishment when they actually get it right or figure it out.
I totally agree. I think these challenge-based things or project-based things are the way for older students to make them interested, wanting to learn. And I know that you know a lot about motivation in general. So my last question was, what do we know about how to motivate young children's interest in math? You touched on it already a little.
Luckily, all of the things that are effective pedagogy also motivate children. So one of the most important dimensions of a learning situation that motivates children is them feeling a sense of developing competence. This is not true just for young children, it's true for adults as well. That when you see your skill developing, whether it's learning playing tennis, or you're cooking, or learning physics, it's that experience of understanding new understandings that are really satisfying. And that motivate wanting to do more. Mm-hmm. So if children are getting activities or tasks that are too easy or too hard, they're not experiencing that sense of developing competence. And so they're not as motivated, because either they're bored, I know how to do this, I know how to do this, or they're frustrated. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing here. Mm-hmm. But if with a little effort they can actually achieve a solution, then that's that feeling of satisfaction that motivates them to want to do more. I've played math games with children, mm-hmm. and sort of giving them problems, and they'll say to me, give me a harder one, give me a harder one. Because once they kind of get the ones that we're doing, they want that challenge, they want that sense of accomplishment that comes mm-hmm. with. But now I'm very careful not to give them too hard a one. Because then I don't want to discourage them, but on the other hand, they ask for greater challenge because it's fun that way. It's more engaging, exciting. Okay. One of the other critical dimensions is that sense of autonomy. People, whether they're 4-year-olds or 40-year-olds, don't like to feel like they're being controlled, like they're doing what they're told to do, how to do it, when to do it. It's just not as comfortable. Not as engaging. And so creating activities and opportunities for children to have some room to figure out how they're going to approach it. Now, it doesn't mean total autonomy. It doesn't mean here's the classroom, do what you want, because then they're not going to learn what you want them to learn. But within those constraints and within some structure, to give them some room to come up with their own approach and strategy so that they feel, or even give them choices of activities. You might have what we call centers, tables with different, in the classroom with different activities. They can choose which one they want to work on. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe by the end of the day, at the end of the week, all children have done all the activities, mm-hmm. but at least they had a sense of choice when they engaged in them, because you didn't say, okay, now everybody, we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it now. It gives them that sense of autonomy and freedom of choice, which contributes to motivation. For young children, and I think even for older people as well, you can make learning math playful. You can make it fun. You can make it relevant to their lives. So if you're counting, we have these little, we use with children, we have these little bears in different colors. They're about this big, about an inch high. And sometimes when we're engaging in counting activities with them, we'll create a little game. Like, here are the bears that are going into the forest. So how many bears are going into the forest? So they count the bears. Okay, they're all going into the forest. 2 of them get lost. How many bears are left? So you get it into a story that is more childlike. And some kids it doesn't matter, but other kids it really matters to create a more game-like, more fun opportunity. And I've seen some just incredibly creative, innovative activities that teachers have developed to make the math seem more like a game to them. But most of the time, 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds and little kids are learning math. If it's done well, they don't see it as work. They see it as just another game, another fun activity that they're engaging in.
Well, I know you are practicing it sometime too in your family, and thank you very much for allowing time in your busy schedule of enjoying the summer too, to do this interview. And we are going to put links to your research team and to your own work for more detailed experiences.
Certainly, I hope people will go on to the DREAM website, dreme.stanford.edu, because I think they'll find a lot of materials and resources that might be useful to them if they're interested in teaching young children mathematics.
And I definitely liked your webinar on playful mathematics too. That's one of my favorites.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Any
final thoughts? Sorry, I was talking, Mima. Would you repeat? Because I
just wanted to say have a wonderful conference, and I wish I was there with you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe next year.
Great. We appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.